Let's get the thoughts of the former Conservative leader and Brexiteer Iain Duncan Smith. Thank you very much for coming in. Crazy, cretinous, silly. These are how some of your colleagues have described the idea of a new customs partnership, which we believe to be the Prime Minister's preferred option. How would you describe it?
Before I do, can I just say how sad I was today to hear
yes, of course.
Tessa Giles' death. I thought her speech in the House of Lords was very moving, and I think, interestingly, took death, the final enemy, into a kind of honourable escape, and I will miss her enormously. She was a kind and decent person.
And we'll be talking more about her later.
So on the words.
Thanks for that. Yes. Yes. So crazy, cretinous, or silly? How would you describe the new customs partnership?
Well, I think I'd take a pace back from what I call kind of emotive languages and just ask the question about what we want to do. Now, everyone says Theresa May, the Prime Minister, has a chosen option. I actually don't believe she does. I think she presented the two options, but she wants to get three things done. One, to have as frictionless a border as possible. Two, to solve the Northern Ireland issue, so there isn't a problem with Northern Ireland. And three, to be able to do the trade deals. So getting those three elements right, I think, is the critical issue.
But not easy.
Well, it's not easy, and there's another element to it, which I think is the real deciding factor. It's how complex is either of these solutions to implement in the time given. And my view about them is very simple. The one that says the Max Fac, what a horrible name that is for anything, but the Max Fac idea is about basically enhancing the existing borders for non-EU trade and making them smoother and faster as they are. This is already now taking place in Switzerland. So this technology is already happening in other countries and other borders. And in fact, the European Parliament has urged Europe to do exactly this. And they say this.
But you know, there's a fundamental problem with the fact that the technology doesn't exist to make trade completely frictionless like that yet. And we've heard Simon Coveney, the Irish Taoiseach, just again this morning saying the Max Fac solution, as currently proposed, will not solve the question of having no infrastructure on the Irish border.
Well, I don't agree with him. And I think he and the European Union have been playing a really rather poor political game over the Northern Ireland border. He knows full well in private that what they are seeking to achieve is achievable with regards to Northern Ireland. There's a very small amount of trade crosses the border. I think about 2 to 3% of Ireland's whole export trade crosses the Northern Ireland border. They have for years already.
During the process, you've got agricultural products and manufactured products going back and forward before they're exported all the time across
Yes, you do, but my point is that's the whole point about what is being proposed. So there were the two elements, this is the point I wanted to make. Which is the one that would be simpler to implement ultimately, get you to your point of departure and still be able to be enhanced further, or what is a complete new design? And the problem I have with the customs partnership, it is a complete new design. And I have the scars on my back from seeing how governments implement new designed technical systems. It's really a nightmare. And they won't be able to do it within the time. And I wonder if they'll ever be able to do it. So my question really is, you should settle on what is an enhancement and go on enhancing it for practical reasons rather than trying to create something new. Civil service are always proposing new things to you, and you should always say, hold on, I don't like that if it's new unless it's been done somewhere else, and I think that's what I would go. So the practical elements, I think, are the deciding features of how I would choose to go with this.
If the Prime Minister doesn't agree with you and comes down on the side of something like a new customs partnership, what would be the consequences within the parliamentary party? What would you and your more Eurosceptic colleagues do at that point?
Well, I don't speak for anybody else in the party. I have given the Prime Minister my full support. I continue to give her my full support. See, she's written an article today saying, trust me. I do trust her. I trust her to try and get the best system through. And I genuinely believe when it comes to push comes to shove, she'll settle on what is actually achievable rather than what people might hope would be achievable. And that, to my mind, is a bigger issue than whether or not you think you should stay in the customs union or not. It's what can we achieve in the timescales available, do that. And I'm convinced as a practical individual, and she is essentially practical, she will settle on that. But, you know,
but there's another problem, isn't there, which is the parliamentary arithmetic. Whatever the Prime Minister and the Cabinet go for, she can't necessarily get through the House of Commons. We've got amendments to the Trade and Customs Bill asking to stay in some form of customs partnership, and it's possible there are enough Tory Remain rebels that the House of Commons will take a very different decision. What happens then?
Well, I would just say to my colleagues who might think of voting against on this particular area of the customs union, which is what's coming back from the Lords right now, is that they really need to think very carefully about this, because the Prime Minister hasn't just made it clear in the past, she made it clear again this Sunday in the Sunday Times that she is for leaving the customs union. It was in the manifesto, and all my colleagues stood on that. So this is a very big issue if they're deciding to break this, because they do literally plunge a knife into the heart of government, and particularly to the Prime Minister, because it is very much her fixed view, and that is what we stood on at the last election.
So if some of your Tory colleagues were to rebel on that and vote in favour of a customs union, would they be putting Theresa May's premiership in jeopardy?
Well, I think everybody risks it because we don't have a majority. So the risk that they take is staring across the floor of the House at them right now, which is somebody who himself says he's in favour of leaving, which is Jeremy Corbyn, and doesn't want to have any truck with staying in things like the single market. So they're likely to do a deal with, as far as they're concerned, even the devil on this one. And I simply argue to them that we made a pledge we would leave the customs union. Surely the purpose of the Conservative Party, which is immensely practical generally, you know, all my colleagues, etc., I get on very well with them, get the job done and do it in the least difficult and frictionless way that you can. It's not going to be completely friction-free, because it won't be, but it's achievable, and we should get behind it and get her to do that.